timestamps down below. Saw this game announced, heard straight from the source, so when May 25th hit, I backed it of course. Adventure gamble fight, feels true to the game. My biggest complaint is monsters feel all the same. Lukash heard our words, a trail soon arose, tracking each beast now to learn more of our foes. But the people still want more. How does co-op play? So subscribe to this channel for more videos each day. Toss a coin to your Witcher, oh Valley of Plenty, oh Valley of Plenty, oh. Toss a coin to your Witcher, oh Valley of Plenty. And I'm not going to go too high because I can't go too high. By the way, link to my Patreon down below. But that said, this is The Witcher, and something I have to occasionally remember is that I had this thing a long time ago where I used to occasionally sing here and there, and as the channel grows, every once in a while there's going to be more people who show up, and I sing sometimes, or sing's a relative term, but that's neither here nor there. The particularly large Kickstarters are always a fun time to jump into that, because why not embarrass myself in front of more people and all that. Anyways, this is The Witcher Old World. The Witcher Old World by Go On Board Gaming. This is going to be their, first of all, they had Valhalla, then they had Titans, and now they have The Witcher Old World, going from Kickstarters that were $200,000 to a Kickstarter that is going to cross $5 million by the time this campaign ends. I could be wrong here, but I have to assume it's going to cross 5 million by the end of this campaign. More than that, within 5 minutes, in those 2,583 comments you see here, in the first 50, there should be a comment from me calling 3.2 million within 24 hours. I don't know if we'll hit that. It's going to be close. For sure, if you count Zagramw.to, the Polish version of the site run by Go On Board, if you count the additional 400,000 we get there or so, roughly 400,000 US, I think it's something along that if you convert that, then for sure we're at 3.2. But even without that, I think we're on track to be very close to 3.2 within 24 hours. Keep in mind, I am filming this at, 14 hours since this launched. In 14 hours, we have 17,742 backers, $2,192,000. There is going to be another video I'll be doing a full follow-up video closer to the end of the campaign, covering everything else, because there is a lot going on and a lot changing, even in day one alone. There is so much going on here that, well, there's going to be a lot to cover. There's going to be even more updates to go on from it. This is going to be the typical should you back it video, covering the campaign, covering the details, going over whether it makes sense to back it or not, because you might think the answer is obvious, and it currently... I do lean towards backing it, but it currently isn't obvious in my opinion. So, Go On Board The Witcher. To begin with, this is going to be, unfortunately, too late to... I guess it's going to be too late, unfortunately, for you, but first day backers are all received the mounted Eridan miniature for €0. Unfortunately, this launched 9 a.m. today, Eastern Standard Time, which means it was just too late for my regular video, and this video that went up at 10 a.m. means it's... Unfortunately, I did not have a chance to warn you about this miniature, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they extend it. We'll see what happens there. But this is going to be a miniature available for €8. That is going to be a Kickstarter exclusive miniature. This is so far the only Kickstarter exclusive thing they have talked about in the campaign. From that, let's go into The Witcher Old World. I have a full review on the channel. I'll link to that below. I have a full gameplay with Quackalope. I'll link to that below as well. But The Witcher Old World is going to be an adventure game for 1 to 5 players. A game that plays in 90 to 150 minutes or so. If 14 plus, you can ignore that. That's for legal reasons or whatnot. You can play it with whatever age kid you want to play with that is intrigued by this game. And also, I should note, for those who've, watched The Witcher or read The Witcher, from what I've seen of this game so far, it is family friendly in the content so far. Keep in mind, there are tons of story cards, so it's possible that there are stuff in there that I have not, well, not possible. There are stuff in there that I have not seen, and of course this is a Kickstarter, there's tons more content I have not seen. But from what I've seen so far, both visually and story-wise, it is more in the PG rating than the R rating you might expect from The Witcher, in case you want to play it with your, 10-year-old kid, or who knows what. Either way, just letting you know. Past that, this game is going to be an adventure game that we talked about already. The short version of the game, the 1-minute overview of the game, is going to be you are a Witcher, or you are multiple Witchers running around the map trying to explore the board to ultimately achieve 4 trophies. You will achieve trophies in one of 3 ways. Either by fighting other Witchers, or by fighting monsters, or by meditating, by leveling up your skills to the top level and meditating, although you can't win the game that way. You have to win the game with a fight, because, well, that feels more adventure-like. Past that, the game is going to involve you playing your cards from your hand to move around this board. This map over here, those lines you see, you're going to be moving from location to location, playing cards that have the matching terrain type to move around the board. Whenever you move to a location, you'll take the action at that location, often involving leveling up your Witcher in one way or another. When you're done with that phase of the game, you're going to move to the adventure phase or the encounter phase, where you'll either fight a Witcher, fight a monster, or alternatively, and arguably most often, you will read a card from one of these story decks, choosing to have an encounter in or outside the city, and then going through some sort of narrative aspect on that card. You'll have another player read the card to you. You walk up to the inn and someone says to you, "Hey, you dirty scoundrel, Witcher person, blah, blah, blah." And then you have to, do you hit him in the gut or do you treat him with kindness? There's going to be choices with consequences that's worth mentioning. And so you'll go through that encounter, and some of those consequences will have follow-up stories that involve, well, now that you did this, you find a manuscript, a text, you have to head to the ancient mountain to reveal something. And when you go there, you'll find some legendary Witcher sword that will be incredible. So there's tons of these tiny little narrative aspects tied into this single shot game. This is not a long, epic, sprawling adventure game. If you were hoping for that, because, you know, it's The Witcher, you might have been hoping for that. This is not currently that. When I say currently, I don't have any secret information that it will be, but hey, Kickstarter, who knows where this goes. But currently, this is a single-shot adventure game, but one that ties in that narrative through, not abstracted, but through condensed mechanics that will give you little journeys, adventures, and things that tie together. When you're done with the encounter phase, again, either player, monster, or alternatively the encounter, you'll then go through there to the deck-building phase. This is a deck-building game. Your deck is going to drive you forward in this game. And so you'll go to the deck building, where you'll be able to add a card to your hand. You're going to discard whatever cards you have left, whatever. You're going to draw up to your hand size, and then you will buy a card from the market, and the cards will potentially be free, or they'll cost you giving up other cards, which means giving up actions for your next turn in order to acquire that card, but hopefully build a better, more streamlined, more cohesive deck to help you take down the monsters. And that is basically going to be the semi-short overview of the Witcher Old World, the board game. Past that, there's a lot going on here. There's other things we didn't talk about. There's going to be things like dice poker. You're going to be playing dice poker with that game. And keep in mind, these dice over here, these are from the Witcher Kickstarter, which I do recommend. Well, this is the Witcher Kickstarter. This is from the Witcher Hybrid Dice Kickstarter. If you want to really, well, pay a lot of money, keep in mind, if you want to pay a lot of money but feel like your games of dice poker in The Witcher are more thematic, then the Witcher Hybrid Dice, they have a Kickstarter. Their Pledge Manager's launching. If you check the update, I'll link to it. But they have a Pledge Manager launching in 2 weeks or something like that. Somewhere in this. They're going to have a Pledge Manager launching soon for those who did not get in the campaign. If you want beautiful metal dice or plastic dice, you want to go cheaper, that have designs of The Witcher, you can buy a set of D6 to play dice poker. It will be expensive. It'll be almost the price of the full Witcher board game, depending how many sets you get or how you want to handle that. But it certainly would add to the thematic immersion of the game. And if you're looking for ways to spend extra money, well, that certainly is one of the ways that you can do so. Past that, the game itself, or the campaign. The campaign is going to come with the standard pledge and a deluxe pledge for the campaign, and that's going to be giving you, well, the standard pledge is going to be €70, and it's going to be giving you all the mechanics, all the components of the game, as well as all unlocked stretch goals for what you need there. The deluxe pledge is €125 extra, so an extra €55 is going to be giving you miniatures, primarily miniatures, a whole bunch of miniatures for the monsters, but then also some other things added as well through stretch goals. So before we get to stretch goals, you're just getting an extra 15 miniatures to represent the various monsters. The base game is going to have miniatures for the Witchers, and it's going to have tokens for the monsters. Tokens which, to be very clear, you can 100% play and enjoy the game with those tokens. I have done so. It's the only way I've played the game so far, and I love the game. So you definitely do not need the monsters to enhance the gameplay of the experience. Does that mean the monsters aren't cool and worth getting? I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying you can totally play and enjoy and fall in love with this game without the monster miniatures. But that's going to be the two base pledges there. That said, that alone, those price points are 100% not worth it for what you're getting in the base pledge alone. This game is going to retail. This game will be available at retail. If you think this box, with what you're seeing here, is going to be €70, then you're crazy. It will not be available for €70. It'll be available for much cheaper than that. How much cheaper, I'm not willing to double down on, but it will be cheaper than the €70 plus shipping you'll pay for here. Does that mean don't get it? Not in the slightest, because the stretch goals are coming fast and thick. I am very happy with the way Go On Board is running this Kickstarter. And to be very clear, that goes towards my own bias of how I like to have Kickstarters run. There's a few different models of the way you could run a Kickstarter. There's the Monster Hunter World and Primal way, where they give you the bulk of the value up front. And then from there, the stretch goals that unlock throughout the course of the campaign are, or daily reveals or stretch goals, they tend to be on the lighter, less exciting, less interesting side. Not to say not interesting, but less fun, less tons of extra stuff. And that works. That's fine. That's great. They give you all that picture up front, and then you just kind of hit back and half pay attention throughout the campaign. Or there's the way Command runs a Kickstarter. Or in the case of this Kickstarter, the way Go On Board is running a Kickstarter. Where the initial pledge is absolutely not worth it in the slightest. Wait till retail, get it later. But then the stretch goals start coming. And the stretch goals start adding value. And you build up that snowball effect. Instead of a campaign that has a deluge of people day one, which especially with early boards is very often how these things go. There's an early bird here. So you're going to have people who jump in on day one to lock in that Eridan miniature, and they hedge their bets. Maybe they wait to see whether this is a game that's for them, and they'll figure it out later. But then they kind of walk away a little bit. And also people who show up day three feel like they're not getting the same deal as day one, so they're a little less excited. But now, when you have a campaign that the stretch goals keep piling up, the stretch goals keep adding, and they are adding. We're going to go through them shortly, don't worry. But when you have that, instead, what you end up getting is you have people who show up day 7, and the amount of content you see on day 7 is so much more than the amount of content you see on day 1. Sure, you don't get that mounted Eridan miniature, but look what else you get. It builds up momentum that drives forward faster, that keeps the game moving forward. The value is constantly added, which is why I said there will be another video on this campaign closer towards the end, maybe the last 4 or 5 days of the campaign. I'll have another video up about it, because this is going to constantly change. Both the information we have, the unlocks we have, the expansions we have, the optional buys we have, as well as the general value proposition will 100% change by the end of the campaign, which is why there will be a full follow-up video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to get hit with that whenever it pops up. Past that, let's start going through those stretch goals. Let's start talking about what we have here. We're going to have 5 miniatures in the core game. Every 5 witchers. We're going to have 5 witchers in the core game. Every witcher is going to come with a unique ability and their own deck of cards. The deck of cards won't necessarily feel as different as you might think. I mean, they all have their symbols, their chaining and all that. They are different, but they're not necessarily going to feel that different, especially as you first jump into the game. It might take multiple plays before you appreciate that nuance. That said, their abilities do feel different. Every time you encounter someone in battle, you'll have a different unique ability as far as how that witcher plays. So the core game comes with five different witchers, 5 different miniatures, 5 decks of cards, 5 boards, double layer player boards, all that stuff that you need to, well, play the game. Then we have the monsters. The monsters in the game are going to be all these monsters over here. The monsters come either way. There's going to be 15 monsters in the core game. The monsters come either way, but whether you get a monster token or a monster miniature, that depends on the pledge level you get over there. So let's scroll through these. We have the Lashesh and the Lashen. And keep in mind, I have watched The Witcher, I have played The Witcher board game, I have read The Witcher comics, and I still am going to mess up some of these names. I am not a huge obsessed person, I don't mean that negatively, I'm not hugely obsessed with the lore of The Witcher. I am familiar with it, and I enjoy all the content around it, but if I say Lashesh instead of Lashen, it's because I don't know it that well. Then we have the Griffin. We're going to have the I can't even read this from here. We're going to have the Wyvern. We're going to have the Arax, the Werewolf, the Barghest, and all these other creatures, these monsters, the miniatures, these tokens, whatever you have. The art, by the way, in this game is gorgeous. So overall, the production value across the board, and I had a prototype of this game, but the production value was incredible. Then we're going to have the trophy cards over here. We're going to have trophy cards that are these trophies you can acquire in the game. We have the exploration cards, the 72 exploration cards that give you those choices, give you that aspect of, well, you do this, you encounter that, you find a pirate ship, do you tell the villagers or do you try to loot it yourself? All those choices you have in the game from these 72 exploration cards, and that's base game alone. Don't worry, the Kickstarter is going to give you more. We'll come to that. We have 90 action cards. These are going to be the core way you chain in the game. We'll show you more how it works as we scroll down the page. We have 56 event cards. These are going to be the cards that tie into the exploration cards that'll say, oh, when you do this and this choice, grab card 32 and do X, Y, and Z. Or when you get to this location, grab card 32. We have the monster fight cards, a common pool of cards that represent the monster. This is going to be my general complaint. My biggest complaint against the game was that the monsters did not feel unique. The monsters just felt like a token with the monster. Those miniatures, which are going to be great and excellent and awesome, you're going to have a singular ability that defines the monster. It does not feel like you're fighting the Wyvern. It does not feel like you're fighting the Lashen. It just feels like you're fighting a monster. That's all it feels like. And that complaint will be resolved in the stretch goals. It will not be resolved in the base game alone. We're going to have a bunch of help cards, player aid cards to give you just the information you need at a quick glance. This game, it has a decently long rule book. I mean, a prototype, so we'll see how the final copy goes, but it has like a 30+ page rule book. But the actual game, I got people up and running on this game in 5 to 7 minutes. This game is quick and easy to teach as long as you know some general concepts such as deck building, moving around the board, action selection, sequencing, all that. The game is very fast and easy to get people up and running. It is accessible. Lots you have to know in the background as the person running the game. What happens if this happens? How do you actually play dice poker? What do these symbols mean? There is stuff to know, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, the actual core game here is incredibly quick and easy to teach, very accessible, very easy to pick up. Past that, we have the solo and co-op expansion. Because we haven't talked about this part yet, but the solo and co-op expansion, this game is a competitive game, which a lot of people did not like. But I will say, speaking for myself, I was one of those people who did not like the concept, but having played the game, I like it just fine competitive. To the point that I'm debating house ruling that the final trophy has to be earned through a competitive fight. I'm debating house ruling that when I get the copy of the game, because the competitive fights feel the most rewarding. When you fight against a monster, if you level up enough, it doesn't necessarily feel as much of an accomplishment later game. Early game it does, but late game, as you've built a better deck, as you've built yourself up to take those hits, to deal hits back in return, it might feel like there's a question of timing. I got to fight the monster first, not I earned the win first. And that fight against another Witcher, when you have your deck versus their deck, it is so much more rewarding using the same system, a solid system by the way. It is so much more rewarding that I like the idea of finishing this game, of earning your final trophy has to be earned through a competitive fight. To be very clear, that's my own personal house rule that I'm probably going to implement, not an actual rule in the game. But yeah, solo co-op expansion is going to give you solo and co-op for those who don't want that. The Kickstarter, the updates are all going to give you hints and teases about how that works. I am not going to talk about that in detail right now. I'm going to be talking about different aspects of the updates, of the stretch goals, of the things that we have here. But I'm not going to be talking about the solo co-op expansion in detail, because rather than going over these small hints we have right now on day one, I'm going to wait till later in the campaign for that second video to go over it, as we have more of a cohesive picture as opposed to hints and teases about it. And then we have the stretch goals. Stretch goals that, by the way, the game gave you, like, I mean, the campaign hit like $500,000 before they even had a chance to update their stretch goals. And to their credit, to Go On Board's credit, they did not immediately start with, okay, great, and our stretch goals start here, and it's going to go jump to $100,000 gaps. They tried keeping up with the stretch goals from where they were, and even though the stretch goals kept surging past, so they, we're already up to like 700,000, and they're giving us stretch goals for 400,000. It was great to see them really look for opportunities to give and add things to the game, and not to take advantage of just how quickly this thing is funding. Again, $2.2 million right now, likely 3.2 or somewhere in that range, likely crossing 3 by the time you're watching this video. So it's doing incredibly well, and they are giving us stretch goals along the way. And a game that's going to very easily, very potentially hit 5 million by the time this is done, between the backers that are continuously coming in, between the potential opportunities for metal coins, for playmats, things that I have to assume will be in this Kickstarter. There's going to be more content and more ways for people to give up more money. And for all I know, they have a plan to, add on 4 of these metal dice from the Q Workshop. I don't know what their actual plans are, but there's many opportunities and rooms to give stretch goals to people, to give optional buys to people that will want those. And that's just going to inflate the funding even further, giving you more and more stretch goals in the game. So lots going on here. And with that, let's go through the stretch goals. Stretch goals, adventure pack. So to begin with, we have 144 cards unlocked in the game, and that's going to be because of the Polish funding on Zagramw.to. All that funding is going towards adding more and more cards. This number over here, this 144, has been constantly updating as the funding over there updates. Now, to be very clear, that 144 is actually a little bit less, because that's including the numbered cards, which represent extra things you go through. So in reality, it's probably a little less. I don't know the exact number. It's probably closer to around 100, maybe 110 cards, and then the other 30-40 are cards that you're searching for or utilizing in those cards. But still, that more than doubles the amount of content you have in the base game, and it's still going to continue to grow. So those who are worried about, I'll remember what happened when I went to the boat, I'll remember what I chose and the consequences of that choice. And to be clear, speaking for myself, I played this game, and then 3 days later I played my second game, and I encountered one of the exact same cards, and I didn't remember a thing. I remember the encounter, I remember the choice, I didn't remember what I chose or the impact of that choice. So I think those who are worried about going through the cards, will find that you will have to play this game a lot before that is a concern. That's going to be the first stretch goal. From there, we have the Wild Hunt surround track. There's going to be various options that are being thrown in as the stretch goals for that Wild Hunt expansion. We're going to have the round cards indicating the various rounds of the board. Basically, you're going to have that miniature. You're going to have Eridan running around the board or managing these waves of enemies that are approaching at you as you have to take care and deal with these enemies across sequential rounds. You're going to have the exploration cards related to the Wild Hunt. We're going to have the first monster. So keep in mind, base game has 5 Witchers and 15 monsters, okay? So we're already adding 1 monster already in the stretch goals. Then we have the deluxe upgrade over here. I believe this is for deluxe. Yeah, deluxe upgrade only. We have 5 plastic player tokens. Then we have a second monster. So again, 2 monsters so far. Then we have the Monster Trail expansion, and this is a big deal. The Monster Trail expansion is what I was looking for. It fixes my biggest complaint in the game. Not to say I have no more complaints. I mean, I gave this game a 5 out of 5. I think this is an incredible experience, and I highly recommend it. But, that said, there are multiple nitpicks we have of the game, and one of them, the biggest one, was about the lack of the monsters feeling different. And this is going to make the monsters feel different. For every single monster, you're going to have a card with different behaviors. And for every battle you have, you're going to shuffle in a bunch of cards, and when those cards come up, or even more importantly, when those cards are discarded because you dealt damage to the monster, you will have effects that happen as a result. Different effects, depending on whether it was discarded or drawn. But you'll have effects on the card that will mess with you in ways that you were not planning on. The monsters will feel like monsters. Along the way, as you hunt them, it's going to give you more, and because it's adding more challenge to the monster, it's giving you more balance to be able to deal with the monster at the same time. So now you can hunt down those monsters even more than you were before. Even more than the trail token you were dealing with before. You'll have different encounters as you research the monster, as you speak to an old lady, as you do different things. And those will give you different benefits, either right now in the moment, or when you fight that monster, you'll have different benefits. So the Monster Trail expansion gives you a lot more nuance, a lot more depth to fighting those monsters, to making them feel different. And yes, there will be a card for every single monster that is unlocked as a stretch goal in the base pledge. I believe as an expansion as well. Basically, all the monsters will have that. And over here we have the Monster Trail tokens, and this is going to be a typical thing they do across the stretch goals, where they do bundle some essential components. So we have the thematic descriptions and the tokens and the cards all fit into that Monster Trail expansion. Then we have the stretch goal monster for the Water Hag. That's the third miniature that we're getting, the third monster we're getting as a stretch goal. Then we have this Name Your Witcher over here. So this is an option to basically add your own name to a Witcher to give them, whatever degree of persona you want in that Witcher. Then we have the first of an extra miniature. So we have the School of the Manticore Witchers. So now we're up to 6 Witcher schools, 6 different Witchers in the game. And then, of course, their player board and their cards, all that stuff, and the location card and scoring token for that. Then we have the Wild Hunt, the board, and the help card. Then we have our 4th monster. So up to 4. We're up to 4. Did I lose track already? I think we're up to 4. Yep, that's going to be our 4th monster so far, is going to be over there, going to be the Rot Fiend. Then we're going to have a improved miniature for the deluxe pledge only for the Closed Tavern. This is going to be when you fight a Witcher at a location, you cannot have any more fights at the location to prevent basically fighting back or piling on somebody. So the Closed Tavern is going to be a deluxe fight miniature to represent this location cannot have more fights at it. Then we're going to have our 5th monster, the Manticore. Again, 5 monsters already in day 1. We have a special exploration and event cards, more Wild Hunt cards, we have more tokens. We have our 6th miniature, our 6th monster, the Glusty Warp. So this is going to be our 6th monster so far. A bunch of name tokens. These are going to be more tokens, more names you can add to your Witcher to deluxify them. Not something I personally care about. I would love to see a gameplay version of this, of how your name actually matters, your story, your backstory, who you are matters more. But as it is, it's cute. I don't mind it, but not doing a ton for me. Then we have a plastic insert with the cover. So this is going to give you an insert. We'll see where or how it goes. I'm always uncertain of inserts until I see them. We have certain companies that do inserts well. We know that. Hopefully, Go On Board will do a great insert as well, but I don't know where that ends up. And then we have going to have another boss for the Wild Hunt, fighting against Nithral this time. So you can either fight against Eridan or you can fight against Nithral, different bosses for the Wild Hunt. And this is where we are day 1. So, day 1 so far, just a quick recap. We have 5 Witchers in the base game. We have 1 Witcher in these stretch goals. We have 15 Witchers, 15 monsters in the base game. We have 6 monsters in the stretch goals. And that's all based on 1.4 million euros raised so far. That's based on that number. We're already past that number in terms of funding. They went to sleep for the night. We'll see them tomorrow morning. We'll see how it goes. But across the course of this campaign, across the next 16, 17 days, There's going to be more stretch goals revealed. There's going to be more add-ons revealed, more things to add to our experience. I would not be surprised if the amount of content for this game more than doubles, if the amount of monsters more than doubles. I don't think we're going to see 5 more witchers. I could be wrong with that, but I don't imagine we'll see that many more witchers. I don't think you need that many more witchers. But there's going to be a lot more content for the miniatures, for the monsters, for the other content we'll see. One of the things we haven't even seen yet is they talked for those people who've been wanting a female character. So the Witcher lore traditionally has male witchers. The first female witcher in the Witcher lore is going to be, I can't remember her name, but from the TV show. There's going to be I can't remember her name, but there is going to be a female witcher who finally entered the lore, but that only happens for the first time in Geralt of Rivera's time. And this whole story right now, this game we're playing, takes place hundreds of years before Geralt of Rivera. So we can't have that in the, not we can't, they don't have female witchers in the lore unless they choose to change that. That said, there certainly are female characters in the lore. There's mages, other characters. Now, I don't know what they exactly go on board with bringing to the table, but I know that they have confirmed on Board Game Geek that there will be female playable characters in the game coming later in the campaign, not day one. So if that's what you've been waiting for, there will be that in the campaign. Just keep your eyes peeled, subscribe to this channel, or just back for $1 and see how it goes. Or it's day one, or it might not be day one for you anymore, but back the game and see where it ends up. There's a lot that's going to show up here, and we just have to be patient to a degree. Speaking of that, speaking of what's coming up or whatnot, so let's talk about the value aspect. Should you back it, should you not? And understand there will be a full other video covering this later because the answer might change. Because right now the answer is a strong, firm, I don't know. Because I can't know. Because as of right now, what we have day one is we have a whole lot of stretch goals, a whole lot of extras. All those things seem to be bundled expansions into your pledge. Effectively, we have the Wild Hunt expansion. We have the Monster Trail expansion. That's what it seems like. It seems like we're being given expansions in our pledge that we are paying more for the base game, but we're getting those expansions built in. Additionally, if you backed on day one, or if you choose to pay $8 for it later, €8 later, then you'll get the Mounted Eridan miniature, the Kickstarter exclusive figure that you will not ever be able to get outside of Kickstarter. But that's so far the only Kickstarter exclusive that we've officially seen announced. Now, there will be more. I've confirmed with Lukasz that there will be more. He says there's not going to be a lot of Kickstarter exclusives, but there's going to be other stuff as well that is Kickstarter exclusive. They want the game to be accessible to a lot of players outside those who show up on Kickstarter today. They want the game to have legs, to live for a long time, to potentially have more expansions, more content down the road past this Kickstarter. So they want it to be available and accessible to those, but there will be extras. So we'll have to see what that shows up as. Because the two missing pieces of information I have, the ones that make it hard to make an exact determination on the value here, on whether you should back it now or wait for retail, are going to be what's Kickstarter exclusive, and then what's the MSRP, what will it be later, what will all the expansions add up to later. I can tell you that the price doesn't seem bad. It seems bad for the base game. But once you factor in the amount of content you're going to be getting as stretch goals, as add-ons, as all of that, the price doesn't seem bad at all. It seems fairly reasonable. What is it? The pledge is going to be either $86 plus shipping to get the base pledge with already a ton more content added and more that will be added as we go. Or alternatively, paying the extra $55 to get, we don't know exactly how many yet, but to get additional extras and already an extra 21 miniatures, likely somewhere closer to 30 to 40 miniatures, depending on just how much we unlock across the course of this campaign. I don't know exactly how far this goes. I imagine it's going to do well. I imagine the campaign is going to have extras. We're going to see metal coins. We're going to see a playmat. This is not officially confirmed information. This is my own judgment call based on the fact that we have, what is it? We have 17,000 backers. By the time you're watching that number is going to be 22, 23,000, if not more. That is an insane number of people. It would be, the amount of people who are going to want metal coins, the amount of people who are going to want a playmat. It's printing money. For Go On Board, they should absolutely offer those things to the people who want them, because the people who want to buy them will be happy to buy them. The people who don't want to buy them will just not buy them, and Go On Board will make money along the way. It is a win-win for everyone involved to have some of those things. Now, gameplay expansions are always a little trickier, because you'll have two camps there. You'll have people like myself who are like, yes, give me all the gameplay. I want more for this game. This was a great experience, a great game. And then there'll be people who don't want to be pushed into getting too much all at once. It's just, let me have the base game. Let me enjoy it. Talk to me in a year and a half, 2 years, when the game has landed, and, well, the game will land before that, hopefully. But talk to me after the game has landed, after I've been able to play it and see how much I like it, and then I'll show up for the second Kickstarter. There will always be different types of people and different models of how you have to handle Kickstarter. I don't know what will be in this game or not by the time it's done, but I will absolutely be paying attention. And like I said, I'll be covering this in my regular Monday roundups of Kickstarters, and as well, like I said, I will have a dedicated video before this campaign ends. Past that, lastly, I'll just say, make sure to pay attention to, make sure to subscribe to my channel. And because on Friday morning, I'll be doing a live stream together with my wife, but it will be basically anything to do with, Rena and myself, or any questions you have on The Witcher. I'll be happy to answer them as well in that live stream. So whatever questions you have in whatever context, shape, or form, I'm happy to address them. But that's basically it for now. Until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. Stay tuned. There's going to be more coming. This is a crazy... This is going to be in the top 10 funded Kickstarters of all time. I'm pretty sure. Top 10 funded board game Kickstarters of all time. Close enough. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And have a good one.